Hi, my name is Paul Glumaz, and I'm an activist with the LaRouche Political Action Committee. And this segment tonight, the first day of summer, June 20th, is being brought to you by General Welfare Presents. Okay. All right, now, the situation that we're in right now is that we've had 5 months, full 5 months of the Trump presidency. And we're going deeper and deeper into a profound crisis. The Trump presidency has yet to be able to consolidate itself. It is an unconsolidated situation. And Donald Trump is not really, at this moment, very much in control of the country or the presidency. Things are going on which are out of his control, and the country is drifting into a strategic crisis internationally, a financial crisis, and an infrastructure breakdown crisis internally. And I will go into the strategic crisis. The other day, a Syrian jet, which was pursuing combatants in the area of Raqqa, was shot down. And the Russians have now locked on to any objects flying to the west of the Euphrates. And the U.S. is and Russia are very close to a military conflict, an actual shooting war. This is happening largely because Trump is not supervising the military or the Navy. And it is also happening because the U.S. has embedded in the Free Syrian Army its special forces, which have been training and working with ISIS and Al Qaeda, and they're trying to save these the people that both our own men as well as the people that we trained for use elsewhere. Also, Mattis actually Dunford, the chief of staff, is talking about not allowing the Syrian government to regain control of the area around Raqqa, but to set up an American element splitting the country. So these are the kind of things which are propelling the United States pretty much without Trump being in control of the situation into a military confrontation and possibly war breaking out in the Middle East between the United States and Russia, because of the lack of control. Now, you have to understand that not everybody in the United States is agreeable to the idea of shutting down the terrorist apparatus. And the same people that are behind the terrorists in the U.S. government are the same people who are moving against Trump and are moving to implement a coup d'etat against Trump. And the coup d'etat is taking the bureaucratic angle, as well as the climate is being created of violence right now in the United States through the media and other operations, such that in that climate of violence, you have the potential for assassination, or you have the potential at least to cover an assassination, or to create a cover for an assassination. And this is a very traditional British way of doing things. They did it with Lincoln, and they did it with McKinley. And So now we go to the bureaucratic aspect of the fight. Um, it began with Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, recusing himself in the Russian, so-called Russian investigation, or the investigation into those who were investigating the Russian investigation, because he had had meetings as a senator at various times with the ambassador from Russia. Pure bullshit, but nonetheless, he recused himself, which is what you normally do if there's a taint of problem. And so the deputy attorney general, Rosenstein, was appointed, and then he is the one who did an investigation into the FBI, into Comey, and recommended that Comey be fired. And then when Comey was fired, the whole issue of obstruction of justice came up, and Comey was setting up, it turns out that Comey was setting up Trump for obstruction of justice. And in that moment, Rosenstein appointed a special counsel because Sessions had recused himself. Now, the special counsel who was appointed was the former FBI director, Robert Mueller. Robert Mueller earned his spurs in the Justice Department as one of the principal people overseeing the witch hunt against Lyndon LaRouche and the jailing of and the framing up of LaRouche and his associates back in the 80s and 90s. He was his activities and his success and or lack of success. Nonetheless, he became the FBI director, and Comey is a very, very close protege of his. They're very close friends. Then Mueller has appointed two individuals to the task, to his investigative unit, to play the very key role in the investigation in his special counsel, who have been very active in their support for Obama and Hillary Clinton. One of them was a lawyer for the Clinton Foundation. Now, this is incredible. To appoint Trump's enemies to the investigative position into the staff of Robert Mueller, to head the staff of Robert Mueller, which is supposedly looking into the Russian issue. Now, there are leaks that say that the Russia investigation is now metamorphosizing into an obstruction of justice investigation. Now, you have to understand how the FBI works. It doesn't matter. It's not about committing a crime. It's about how you strangulate somebody through a judicial process. Okay. Number one, these judicial processes require that one, as I experienced and as our movement experienced, requires a tremendous outlay of energy and activity to defend against this strangulation process. Now, how does the strangulation process work? The FBI goes around talking to the various people. Okay. And they talk to you. And you tell them the truth, and there's nothing wrong, and they sense that you're a pretty strong person, so they move on. And when they find a few weak people or people that could be blackmailed or whatever, they then take those people and direct them into a fabricated story. And so, but it takes a while to sift through hundreds, if not thousands, of individuals to get the right people to then fabricate the story. And that's how they do it. That's how they did it with LaRouche. That's how they do it in general. That's how they did it with Traficant. You have to understand this. The FBI, an FBI investigation of this type is not an investigation for evidence. It is an investigation for patsies, for people that can be used to frame up a sitting president or anyone else, a congressman, an important senator, like like the senator from New Jersey who was framed up in 1980. Can't remember his name. Sorry about that, and others. So this is an ongoing process, and then as the FBI spreads out and does its investigation, it creates this feeling of tension, and that feeling of tension disrupts, and the fear that this generates disrupts the actual functions of government. That's what this is all about. And what that does, and then the whole idea is to isolate Trump, so that Trump is afraid to move, to do this. Trump is afraid to do that. Trump is afraid to do this. Trump is afraid to do that. It's to isolate the president. And this is going on hand in hand with the situation in the military, where Trump's business style has been to not micromanage, but to give wide authority to subordinates to function, and not to supervise them. And so this is another aspect of the problem, because you have to have a tight rein on this military of the United States, because they are very compromised with terrorism and with all of the military operations that have been going on in the world, the covert military operations and so forth and so on. So this is what we're dealing with. So when Vladimir Putin, in his interview with Oliver Stone, the fourth segment, which I saw a part of, is saying that Vladimir Putin, has been around 4 presidents: Clinton, Bush, Obama, and now Trump, and that the policies remain the same, although the president's changed, because the bureaucracy doesn't change its policy. He is saying that Russia, while it hopes to be able to improve relations with the United States, it understands that the deep state in the United States is going to fight tooth and nail to prevent any kind of coming to of understanding between the United States and Russia. He knows that. So this is the reality that we're in. Now Trump will be possibly meeting Putin on the sidelines in 2 weeks of the G7 meeting in Hamburg. That's July 7th. So maybe things will improve then. But the whole situation is that Trump is being this process of strangulation is going on, and the momentum has slowed down with Trump. He had momentum coming in because he was under attack, and the population could see that he was under attack, and they could respond to defend him more readily. But now 5 months have passed, and he's still under attack, even more so than he was 5 months ago. So the only way that this can be addressed is by triggering the latent potential in the population. And the LaRouche movement is now moving to trigger a campaign, national campaign, to stop the coup and to defend Trump. And this is very important, because if we can get something like that going at the same time as the infrastructure crisis and the financial crisis occur, then we have the potential of having Trump go to the people with the policies that need to be done: Glass-Steagall, a credit system, etc. The Congress is not in good shape, to put it mildly. I believe it was 98-2, the Congress voted up a bill in the Senate, excuse me, not the Congress, the Senate voted a bill in the Senate to increase the sanctions on Iran and Russia, and also on nations which trade with Russia and receive their natural gas from Russia, like Germany, and that none of these sanctions can be removed except with consultation of Congress. So the Senate, and they're going to put this before the House, is now moving to completely tie Trump's hands in terms of his ability to deal with Russia, to maintain a permanent antagonism, a permanent boycott, and so forth. Now, for Germany and Austria, this is devastating because they depend on natural gas from Russia. And to be told that they're going to be sanctioned for trading with Russia is very serious. And this has snapped the German foreign ministry into writing a letter protesting this to the U.S. government, backed up by Angela Merkel. So this is the kind of thing that is going on. But the power behind all of this is coming down. However, the battle inside the United States to be able to come up with some policies that will actually rescue the United States from the economic and financial collapse on its way is yet to be won. Now, a very interesting aspect of this is what has happened in Great Britain. Jeremy Corbyn campaigned on an infrastructure bank, not a private-public partnership, but an infrastructure bank of public credit. And this has shook up Great Britain. It also was helped to create a situation in the elections earlier this month, wherein Theresa May and the Conservatives do not have in the Parliament, and they have to have a majority in the Parliament. They have to form a coalition with the Ulster Nationalists of Northern Ireland, which is not a very good thing to do for them. So this is a crisis that they're in, and in the middle of this crisis, there was a massive fire at one of the apartment buildings, huge apartment building complex, and the reason the fire occurred and could not it was because they were using very flammable insulation on the outside to provide insulation to save money on energy, and this insulation, which is very cheap, was not allowed in many places, and then all of the routine fire maintenance were ignored because all these apartments, which used to be public, were privatized. Now, these burned down towers are surrounded by police. They do not want people finding out how many people have died. They're claiming, 60-something or 50-something missing, 60-somethings or whatever. But the residents have put together a figure of close to 500. So you have essentially an attempt to downplay the damage. Now, this has hit Theresa May very, very hard. And wherever she goes, she's called a killer, a murderer, etc. Because the policies that led to this are associated with the Conservatives. And so we may see an overthrow of this element in Great Britain in the near future. Now, Jeremy Corbyn himself is old Labour. He is not the new Labour, the Tony Blairs, and he was not expected to do well. The Blair faction in the Labour Party were doing everything to sabotage the campaign. He has come out the winner. He is consolidating power over the Labour Party, and you may be soon seeing him as the new Prime Minister. Now, if you see him as the new Prime Minister, a lot of British money is going to leave the Cayman Islands and leave all of the British. A lot of money is going to be leaving those places because his part of his campaign is not only to implement Glass-Steagall in Great Britain, but to end the privileges and tax of the tax havens for the money that leaves Britain to go into these offshore under the crown. So he's going to remove. He has vowed to remove that whole thing. So this is this is a serious attack on the crown, and it is not clear whether a Jeremy Corbyn prime ministership would end the power of the British monarchy or not. But he is not a fan of the monarchy, and this is a very important point in this situation. So we have this situation in the United States where you have infrastructure crisis developing in New York City. You have it developing on the locks of the inland waterways coming down from the Great Lakes, which bring all of the iron ore into the industrial heartland of the United States, what's left of it, that is. And it's precisely those locks which have not been replaced, not been repaired. It's precisely those tunnels which have not been built. New tunnels have not been built. They can't close the old tunnels because it would cause a mayhem in New York City. And there are many other types of infrastructure problems that are developing all over the United States, because you can have Uber, you can have the internet, you can have all the IT stuff, but nothing has really been done to modernize the rail, to improve the infrastructure, to do anything that actually changes anything. Nothing has been done. It's all control of information. It's all IT, and in the conception that this is somehow generating wealth. Amazon is doing so well, but what is Amazon doing? They're putting everybody, every retailer out of business. So now you have all these unemployed retailers. What is Uber doing? It's putting all the taxi cab drivers out to unemployment. You're not actually doing anything. You're not actually changing the economy. You're not improving the economy. You're just making more cyber-friendly way of doing things. It doesn't solve the economic. It doesn't improve the production of wealth. It doesn't produce anything. Whereas the Chinese, they're actually building stuff. They're putting it all into building things, building infrastructure, building rail, building dams, building water projects, building ports, building things that actually change and increase the productive power of humanity, decreasing the time it takes for something to go from point A to point B, increasing the rate of flow of things. So this is what's going on, and so the Chinese state banks are charging something like 1.5 to 2% interest on these long-term loans, whereas the Trump proposal for infrastructure development bank or fund is supposed to provide a much higher return, like 10% or something like that for its investors, and that's not going to work. You can't do that with infrastructure. It's the increase of the productive activity and the increase of the physical economy and the wealth of the nation that provides a return as a whole on the investment, which is why it has to be state credit. So as we come into this period, and the crisis is going to grow, you're going to have an increasing crisis in the financial system, an increasing crisis and at this point, nothing short of a crisis and nothing short of moving to crush the coup that's being run against Trump, and to mobilize the population to do that, and to mobilize them to back up Trump, from the standpoint that this is a coup against them. This is a coup against the President of the United States.